Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus pilot, and it's a great weekend for all your Airbus widebody flyers out there. iniBuilds has delivered not just once but actually twice, bringing an update to the A350 and an update to the A340, and both of them can be considered major updates. But what exactly is new? Well, I suppose we are going to get right into this one. So the first is going to be the A350, and that one has seen a huge performance update, since performance was one of the main pain points with the aircraft for many of you if you didn't have a complete high-end system. So what exactly have iniBuilds done? Basically, they worked on the cabin to integrate all the techniques that they introduced with the A340, and that made it a lot more performance friendly. We can have a very quick look at that, especially in the aircraft cabin, where we can see the major differences. But before we do that, GSX has also seen an update, and you can see that that update is straight away bugging up the guidance system. Hey, I told you this is an update video, is it? Alright, so let's go ahead and have a look and just take a couple of steps back into the cabin. You can see a lot more curtains are implemented now, and the way that MSFS 2024 works, the cabin is not loading like in a high level of detail behind those curtains. So only when you open them up, the cabin actually loads, which in the past used to introduce a couple of stutters when you were doing that. But let's now walk through the cabin and just open a couple curtains on the way, and you'll see how much of an impact that actually has, aka none at all. Likewise, the LOD models in the cabin itself have also been improved, and we can kind of take a look at that if we just take a look at the business class seat over here. As you can see, when you close up, there is still a really high level of detail about everywhere down here, but the performance has really improved. Like, I'm in Aerosoft Frankfurt over here, which previously was quite the performance hog, and now it's just working absolutely fantastic. Likewise, if we're moving through the aircraft here, taking a look at the galleys, all of this is now pretty well done. So you don't really see any of the improved work that they've done on the cabin. It looks just as good as it did previously, but the performance improvement is really remarkable. Like, I'm walking through the entire aircraft over here without any performance impacts, without any micro stutters even, as you can see. But what exactly does that mean in terms of numbers? Well, let's go ahead and have a look, because they did post a pretty interesting comparison in terms of performance impacts on the iniBuilds forum that I do absolutely want to show you guys. So let's go ahead and have a look at the forum to see what they posted down there. Starting right down here, we can see the average improvement is performance improvement by plus 19.6%, and then depending on the exact specs that you have, you can see quite the improvement down here, which is pretty cool. Now, this was tested with a Ryzen 7800X 3D and some hardware that nowadays I would call not the very high end anymore, but still a decent set of hardware. So definitely, I would say, an average test system over here nowadays. What we can also see down here is the time difference between two consecutive frame rates that has been improved, and this is basically what you perceive as micro stutters. So you can see when the time between two frames is considered more than 4 milliseconds, then we start getting into a range where micro stutters are visible. And as you can see, that's been improved a lot. Like, really a lot. That is a huge improvement, and we can definitely see that when we are working in the sim. Now, the FS 2020 version has also seen some improvements, but obviously 2020 doesn't support as many of the new techniques as 2024 does. So the effect is there on 2020, but not as pronounced as it is with 2024. Now the next change has been a sound update, and that is quite a huge one. Now we will be doing a full flight with the A350 very soon, so that you guys are able to see exactly what's been changed there and get a good impression of it yourself. But it is not a completely new sound pack, but they've addressed a lot of things within the present sound pack, which in my opinion really wasn't bad at all. So I'm really looking forward to be showing you those in the complete flight. And now let's get over to the A340. And here we are in the Airbus A340. Now I've loaded the EAS-1 version of the aircraft because that one has seen a huge rebuild of the display units and the DMCs. So let's actually start with the aircraft powering up, and for that I'm just going to turn on our electricity up here, and when we do that you will start seeing some changes to how the EAS-1 is powering up. So you can see power is now applied to the displays, but the DMCs have not actually booted yet. For this reason, you do see this dashed line over here, which basically tells us, hey, I have power, but I have no signal on what to work with. It takes a little while for the DMCs to start, so don't be surprised. And here we go, the displays are now coming up. No self-test and stuff like that, because as you can see, the EAS-1s do handle that a little bit differently. Now, what's also new is the way that this aircraft is handling display logics. So let's just go ahead and kill a couple of the displays and see how the automatic reversion is happening. For example, if the upper ECAM is or rather if the upper display unit is turned off, then we can see that the ECAM now moves to the lower display unit, where we can now access this completely. Also, if we are now pressing and holding some of the ECAM control panel keys, then you can see that you can still display the relevant ECAM page, and when you let go of them again, then it returns to the ICAS. Now, I'm wondering if it's somehow going to be possible to actually show you guys a little, not bug, but I would say a little interesting feature in the real-world Airbus, where it's actually possible to swap the two display units. However, I'm not sure if that works in EAS-1 aircraft. Might have to hop over to an EAS-2 for that. And we'll definitely do that in a dedicated flight video soon. The same applies to the PFD and the ND, and as you can see, the upper display unit has now started again. So if we turn the PFD off over here, it automatically reverts to the other display unit, which is an automatic protection against always retaining the most important data. Now we can turn the PFD back on again. Once again, it is going to take a little time to start up, and once it is there, then we are going to get the nav display back as well. Now, general logic here behind those display reversions, as I've just talked about in a not so extensive manner, is that it always retains the most important piece of information. So the primary flight display is more important than the nav display, the ECAM is more important than the system display, and so on. Now, when you accidentally turn one of the PFDs or NDs off, well, rather if you just turn the PFD off, then you can see it moves over to the other side. You do have the PFD ND transfer switch over here that you can use to bring it back to your usual display layout. Alright, so that is the new display startup and DMC logic. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic, and that one is a major one. That is the new Datalink environment. So, unfortunately still located in the front FMSs only, not located in the third MCDU, which I'm really hoping they are going to do in the future. Let's have a look into what we got. So, when we now go onto the MCDU menu, then we find the ATSU button down here. We click on that, and that brings us into the menu where we can choose whether we want to go into CPDLC, which is the ATC menu, or into ACAS, which is the AOC menu. Now we want to go into ACAS because that's where a lot of the new stuff is happening. And if you say that this looks similar, yeah, it does, because we have seen a similar ACARS software version from other developers in their Airbus products. So starting with the flight init page, you simply go in here, you click in a data request, then it uplinks your SimBrief flight plan. You can see I've still got the one from my last live stream in SimBrief right now, and that's what it uplinks. Now, interestingly enough, there is no alternate uplink, but that is exactly what it is like in the real aircraft as well, with the difference that we don't even have the alternate prompt here in my company's aircraft. Now from there, going back, we do have our typical ability to request weather, as you already know. Then we have a performance request, which is basically your takeoff performance. So if you don't want to do this on the electronic flight bag, over here you can enter all your aircraft's data. Let's just go ahead and do that. We're departing Frankfurt from a 25 center. The PAX will be off, so no selected. The runway is not wet. We do not need anti-ice. QNH 1013, temperature -5 at the moment. Wind calm, and then on the next page we do not want to force toga. We're gonna go with optimum flap config, and the estimated takeoff weight is 220. It does take that from the FMS, by the way, if you've already entered a flight plan. And the CG is gonna be, let's say, a 29. Alright, cool. Now we can send this, and that's sending that out to the company. The company is going to do the takeoff data calculation, and then it will eventually return that as a company message. So here we go. Now we got a takeoff message. Now you can see our entire takeoff performance is actually calculated in here. When you press the insert prompt, it's actually going to transfer that to the performance page, where you can automatically uplink the takeoff data then. So quite the cool system over here, isn't it? Now, from there, we can have a look into the diversion page, where you basically enter where am I diverting, when do I expect to arrive, and then you can enter optional free text as well, whatever that may be. For example, if you are out of flight duty time, crew's going to the hotel, so that the company can already arrange for a crew bus to pick you up and stuff like that. Alright, finally, we do have the free texts, which are based on Hoppy. Over here you can send a message to basically any client and just type a free text message down here. That way you can communicate with other aircraft also using the Hoppy system. Then we've got the flight log page, which is basically the OE page that you guys are already aware from, telling you when you've pushed, when you went airborne, and so on. So quite some cool stuff down here. Lastly, we also have the delay message, where you can, or rather need to in the real world, explain any delays that have occurred to your company. So that's quite the cool thing that they've added down here. They've also worked a bit on the DCDU behavior, which we are going to have a look at in the next separate dedicated video. Lastly, if you do press the ATC.com button down here, that's going to bring you right into the CPDLC menu. So over here you still have the kind of stuff that you're aware of, like lateral requests, vertical requests, basically anything that goes to ATC. And on Quick Edition over here, they've also worked on the ADS-C, which now doesn't say connected on the ground, which would be kind of nonsense, but now it says armed correctly, so that you can carry out the correct procedures here when preparing the airplane for a flight in the North Atlantic region. You can also send position reports and stuff like that. So that's been added down here as well. But be aware that in a modern world where ADS-C is in use, you basically don't use that, because ATC is able to pull your position through ADS-C at any time anyway. But nice to still have this here for those of you who want to simulate some historical type of operation. That way you can absolutely do it. The same, by the way, goes for oceanic clearance, which is actually going to return something to you as well now, which is quite a cool thing, isn't it? Alright, that much about ACARS and CPDLC changes with this version. Now, if we do have a look into the changelog, then we can see that there is quite the extensive changelog that's actually available down here, once again, just like we're used to from iniBuilds. So as you can see, they've done a great amount of work on the A340. Last but not least, maybe worth just looking into the changelog for the A350 as well, because the A350, as you can see, has also seen quite the extensive changelog in its system logic and, of course, in its ART and OAS as well. Alright, and that is the iniBuilds update from this weekend. I do hope that you all are going to like it. Be sure to leave your feedback in the comments underneath the video. As always, like, comment and subscribe, and then I'm really looking forward to show you these in action over the course of the next couple of days. Thank you very much for watching, enjoy your weekend, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.